All right, live from Denver. It is Friday night. Let me check and see here and make sure that yes, this audio is coming through beautifully, and I could not be happier. I have got a replacement board here, and everything I think is all fixed and wonderful. And we've got phone lines open again, as you see from the fact that we are doing an open mic this week. Hey, critics. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. As you can see, it's just little old me winging it tonight. I'll tell you all about it in a few minutes. As to still no Mel. Yeah, she is actually improving greatly. She was actually really borderline on even doing the show today, but still a little weak, still a little low energy, and so we're just going to let her recover. She had a bit of a long-term infection come down, was the problem, and just kind of is what it is. So, oh, good. Wonderful sound. I am very, very happy to hear that. And let me just bring my monitor down a little bit. I don't think I need to hear myself quite that much in my own ears. Anyway, okay, so glad to be with you guys again, though, live and in person. Oh, my gosh. A few things to, I of course, because I'm me, I always have things to talk about, things to say. It's funny. I don't know if I've ever said this on the show, but when I was about I don't know, 20, 21 or something, there was a Scientologist professional DJ that I knew in Santa Barbara, and I was always in wonder. I've met like 3 or 4 DJs in my life, and I've always been in wonder of them because I was always like, wow, how do you just keep going? How do you just get on a go and just talk and talk and talk and, not really have any gaps or any real downtime in between and stuff? And I never really, I could never figure out how somebody could do that. And here I am doing that. Anyway, not necessarily intentionally or on purpose, but it's kind of funny how once you put a show on and you decide you're going to do that and you're going to talk about things and certain things, it's just when it's of interest to you, it's not really work as hard as it might seem, sometimes. Other times, though, some days. Whoa. All right. Anyway, so Mel is on the mend, guys. She is doing well. And yes, Craig. Thank you for bringing that up on the boys, because Leah got name dropped on this show, and it's so wonderful that that is part of the cultural satire that they are picking up on, right? Is that it's such a big part of culture, and that's what they do on that show. Is it's a lot of social satire, obviously woven into the story. And if you haven't watched The Boys, it's a little violent, it's a little graphic, to say the least. But I love it. I think it's a well-written show. I am always impressed by where the writing goes with it. And even when I think, this is going to be junk, I'm going to hate this season, or this isn't going the way I thought it would, or this isn't going in the direction I thought it would at all, it ends up pulling out and going some other totally, direction I didn't predict, but I enjoy watching, and that I thought was entertaining and fun. So anyway, I definitely, it is violent is the understatement of the year for sure. But the thing that was hitting me just last night, Mel and I actually sat down last night and caught up on the last 2 episodes. And something I'll say completely relevant to my work and this channel and everything is, it's not just fun entertainment. I'm telling you, if you want to know, if you really want to get like a kind of a bird's eye view or an inside look at what the world of the inside world of David Miscavige is, or even Tom Cruise in the inner circle, once his real self comes out, those scenes with Homelander now, they are just, here's this really psychotic, powerful person who everybody's afraid of, and he is now letting loose. And anyway, it's quite interesting in watching everybody and how they react to him. I couldn't help but think of meetings I had been in, times, many times I had experiences I had had in the Sea Org. And I know that this is not just a cult thing. I know that corporate America can be like this. I know that there's all kinds of situations and circumstances people find themselves in where the power disparities are so great, are so awful, that you feel if you say the wrong word, if you breathe the wrong way, your life is over. You are going to be destroyed. And in some cases, that's true. And that is rough. That is rough. It's harsh. It is a harsh environment to be in. And yet, there we are. You know, that's what happens. So that's the world we live in other words, right? But I just love how they take the time to craft these scenes and craft these personalities in the show. So it's satire, but, you know, it's really not that far off at all from how the world actually is. The other thing, of course, we're seeing here is... we are seeing heat. I see some of you guys are commenting even from the UK that it is hot, hot, hot out there. Welcome to our climate change, I guess. And I don't say that with any degree of satisfaction, grim or otherwise. I think it sucks. But and summer, of course, is summer. But this is without question. I'll just call it. I mean, I'll say this is definitely the hottest record on for summer here, hottest June. That I've lived through here in Denver. I've been here 6 years, and my wife is telling me she's never seen a June like this, and she's a native here. So anyway, I don't know. Memory isn't perfect, but man, is it a little warm out there. And I think if I want to kind of throw this out there for you guys, this might be another factor as to why, because it's not just here in Denver, not just here in the United States even, where we're seeing these record highs and where we're seeing climate change, where we're seeing real changes to our world. And these are stressing people out, but both in the immediate with the heat and in the longer term with the anxiety and stress and depression and ideas that people get about this and the hopelessness and the nihilism and stuff that sets in certain quarters because of the messaging on this and the hopelessness people feel. So, nice to know there's only 72 at Big Blue right now. At least they're not feeling too hot. But yeah, Britain's roasting hot right now. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there that this is another contributing factor. Sometimes it amazes me. It amazes, disappoints, and upsets me almost daily, and I'm trying to rein myself in on that. Like Chris, stop being so over this stuff. But I'm back on Twitter. I have opened up. I am in the process of opening up a Facebook page again. Not a personal account, but there will be a public page for my work, and I'll be setting that up hopefully this week. I want to also, you've seen some changes and some graphics and stuff on my channel. I'm going to continue that, keep that going. I have to fix the intros and stuff. Anyway, lots of work to do there. But getting back to my point, I wanted to say that this stress, this like freak out on people's part is one of the reasons why we are seeing increased agitation in our culture, in our society, maybe worldwide, certainly here in the U.S. in certain pockets and areas. And I wanted to kind of throw that out there because it's not all just about personalities. The world is not all personality driven. It's not all Biden's fault, just like it wasn't all Trump's fault, just like it wasn't all Obama's fault. It never was. Ever. That's never been true. That's never been the case. Very, very few things are directly and solely the personal responsibility of our commander-in-chief. Gas prices are not. Inflation is not. The state of Wall Street is not. I mean, there are so many things, social issues, laws, even so many things get laid on the feet of the president, and it's not how it works. It's not how it works. But I'm going to tell you this business with the heat and the stress and the anxiety and everything. I went out. I just wanted to share this little anecdote with you guys because even I'm going to say this like I'm some great exception to any rule that I've ever talked about because I'm not. But even me, right? With as much as I know, as much as I try to practice what I preach, I went out and saw my mom this week. On Monday, I went out to California for 3 days and got a chance to see my mom and my brother and my nephew, Cooper. He's so cute, and spend some time out there. And I noticed on day one, my mom and I actually got into it, which is crazy. It is insane. My mom and I have the closest relationship ever, and And so, how is it possible that I go and within an hour or two of landing, we're fighting. I mean, bad. It was real bad. And both of us were kind of, and it was like, what is this all about? Because that's just rarer than a June day in summer, or whatever that expression goes. Oh yes, thank you for the compliment on my shirt. By the way, I designed this. This is self-designed. You can get this on my Spreadshirt site. Anyway, point is that we fixed it. Totally fixed it. Talked it all out. Talked a lot of things out. Actually, it was a really great trip. Oh, major net positive on the entire experience, and of course, hanging out with my brother and his family was wonderful too. But it really showed me. It really kind of slammed it to my face, and which is why I brought it up in the show here tonight. That even if somebody who is calm, chill, my mom is calm and chill. You've seen us interact on video if you've watched my interview with her. And for us to get into it is like, what the hell, right? And it's like, well, let's face reality, right? It's been, we're just now really kind of really accepting that we've come past COVID now, and the pandemic's pretty much over for all intents and purposes. Even if it's still happening socially, culturally, we've definitely moved on. If anybody has an opinion on that or whatever, I'm happy to talk about it. But as far as I can tell, we've moved on. And we're a big petri dish. Everybody's out mixing it up, no masks for the most part, stuff like that. So people are getting sick again, not just with COVID. I mean, other things. I got sick. That whole Kansas flu thing was insane. So there's a lot of sickness going around out there, and the stress and the fact that people have not been mixing it up as much as they are now. Traffic, right? Yeah, stuff like that. It's just, there's a lot of stressors. Maybe that's the best way for me to put it. There's a lot of stressors out there. And now, of course, we have the economic kickback of 2 years of COVID and supply chain issues and Russia invading Ukraine with gas pricing going up and food prices going up. Guess what? The world's all interconnected, right? And we'll see how long that effort lasts. I think people are going to be pulling their feelers back in a little bit. Countries, I mean, right, as far as production and supply chains and stuff like that. But that takes a long time to happen. I flew out to California, just to answer your question there, Xenu. So good times on that. Thank you very much, Unusual Audio. I'm still getting wonderful, wonderful congrats on completing my master's program, and I'm very thankful. Thanks, guys. In fact, I wanted to talk about that too, but we have a call in the queue, which is awesome, and I'm also going to put in the, or let you guys know, rather, 984-214-4154. Sorry, that was what I was trying to do, is the announcement of the phone number. So if you want to call in, my queue is open. And I'm going to pick up this call, even though it is completely anonymous. Let's see what happens here. Hello, you are on.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty well, yeah. I mean, you talk about, it's so hot in the UK. I wish it would hit Ireland.
Oh, really? Is it a little chilly up there?
Well, it's certainly not very hot, no.
Okay, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's happening?
I think you hit on a couple of decent points in what you said. I never really know where to go with open mic because it is so open, but I'd like to respond, obviously, then to a couple of things you said there.
Yeah.
The first one has to be about the idea that climate change is a stressor. I mean, it can be, and it's why, God forgive me, I think I would say, if I had to pick between spending an hour with a climate alarmist or a climate denier, I would have to pick the climate denier, because that person is someone who's going to live their life and try to not be stressed, even if they are wrong. And obviously, I'm not a climate denier, but my own belief is that our short-term solutions to climate change obviously have to include things like reduction in carbon and carbon capture and all of that. But in the very long term, our solution to climate change has to assume that humans are not causing it. because those ice caps that exist in the Arctic and the Antarctic today have not been divinely put there to maintain the sea level. At some point, be it 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 50,000 years from now, they will melt and the sea levels will rise. And human civilization, if it is still around at that time, will be annihilated unless something's been done in the interim.
Right. I think the argument isn't the argument, and I'm, not a climate scientist, right? I'm not going to pretend to be. I believe climate scientists, but I don't argue for climate scientists. But have that all being said, I mean, within my limited understanding of how this works, is it not the case that the idea with the anthropomorphic, with the man-made aspect of this, is that we've sped the process up, not that it wasn't going to happen anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We sped the process up by orders of magnitude. And
right.
That's a major, major problem. But
right.
It's like, eventually, we also have to think about, we have to think really long term, what's the future of humanity going to be like?
Right.
And so we need to obviously stall it or try to reverse some of that climate change. But we also have to prepare for a world in which at some point it's happened. And I also think it's particularly hypocritical of hypocritical, for a better word, for people to talk about, the individual carbon footprint. The individual carbon footprint was invented by British Petroleum, BP. If you don't see a conflict of interest there.
Oh, no. I have no idea what you mean by that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a little fed up with big oil right now. I can tell you that for sure, especially with gas prices and everything.
100 companies produce 71% of all the carbon emissions in the world. And the biggest...
I'm sorry, what was that? What was that?
100 companies produce 71% of all carbon emissions. Right. And the biggest 25 container ships by tonnage produce more CO2 than every automobile in the world.
Wow, those are interesting pieces of information.
So we really do need to reorient our efforts to fight climate change. The single biggest thing we could do is nuclear-powered cargo ships.
Sure.
In my view, if it's good enough for the U.S. aircraft carrier fleet to run on nuclear reactors, it's good enough for cargo ships.
Oh, I am on board with you on nuclear power, right? And like air travel, it gets a bad rap, I think, because the accidents are so spectacular. Yeah. And people freak out, even though the repetitive, the frequency of those accidents is so few and far between. If I understand the situation right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
2018 was the first year where not a single person had died on a commercial passenger aircraft. Not one.
Wow. Impressive statistic, actually, given the number of people who travel by air.
Oh, yeah. And the entire anatomy of a nuclear power plant has completely changed since Chernobyl.
Right.
That they're not even. It's like comparing apples and oranges these days.
Right. Right. I would believe that. I'd believe that. I've got another couple calls in the queue, so I want to give you a chance to bring up if there's any other things you wanted to talk about before we have to segue to some other calls.
Yeah. I think the only other minor thing I was thinking about was when you talked about the statistics and everything, and what it was like meeting David Miscavige.
Yes.
When I was in China, one of my roommates, who was American, well, my flatmate initially was American, and I was talking to him about David Miscavige and Scientology, and I told him the story, I'm sure you remember, from Going Clear, about the musical chairs incident. He was so dumbfounded by it. He thought that I was talking about a work of fiction. He couldn't believe that something like that had actually happened. And also, more importantly, that people were fighting over the right to stay in the home. Right.
That's the part that blows people away. The cruelty is a whole level of like disbelief, and then the fact that people will stay there. It's like like domestic abuse survivor stories where people are just like, why'd you stay? And they just don't understand the psychology of it.
No, these people have been manipulated for years or decades.
That's right. That's right. Powerful stuff.
Yeah,
Powerful stuff.
absolutely.
Cool. Well, thank you for calling in. It was great to talk to you again.
Absolutely great to be back.
Excellent. And talk again soon.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Cool. Let me just check in here and make sure that I am not missing anything important. Yes. Okay, good. Climate stuff. All right. Cool. Oh, I think, let's see here. Hello.
Good evening.
Hey, honey.
How are you? Hey, good to talk to you again.
Yeah, you too.
It feels like it's been forever.
I know.
I'm so glad that we can call in, and I'm so glad the board sounds wonderful. So you got it fixed?
I did. Thank you. Yes, I figured out the wiring and I figured out the board, and should be all good now.
Well, it is. It's terrific. I hope Mel feels better. I really do.
Yes.
And
thank you.
I'm glad it's open. I'm glad it's open mic night.
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on a few things. First of all, life is so heavy, okay? And we're going through so much. So I wanted to touch on maybe future topics dealing with mental illness.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, Chris. It's so imperative. It's so imperative. I know I use that word a lot, but I mean, really, it is. I was speaking with someone who's a lawyer, and he has a show. I've told you, the Don't Worry Murray show. And we got into, and he's a great defense criminal lawyer. That's what he does. He's the best in his field. And he has his own show, and we were talking. And I said to him, the fact that abuse is so prevalent and neglect and the way that people interpret it, whether or not you're abused by someone who has a mental illness or not, you can get a mental illness. And so he said, well, perhaps you should listen to the next show because she talks all about mental illness and children, and I think that would benefit you. I said, well, I think it would benefit you as well, because I definitely see a correlation between mental illness and criminality. So on that, we left it, and it was very civil. But it's really, I think there are different degrees of it, but I just think that everyone has it. I mean, that's just my I don't know, it resonates with me when I meet people, how they're all, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
No, not at all. And in fact, I've got something I'll go over on one of my famous Post-it notes here. Later on in the show, I'll go over something you might like, kind of connected with what you're talking about in terms of maybe another way of looking at how people are a little out of balance in some ways mentally or in terms of mental health.
Yes. And I think that's why the world is in the shape that it's in.
Yep. I think you're right.
I mean, this doesn't come from normalcy in any kind of way that I would envision it. Not that I'm normal by any stretch.
Well, exactly, right? Right? That's the thing, right?
I'm just saying that,
What's normal,
we normalize
right?
abnormality.
I know I'm at the top of the bell curve. I am absolutely the most normal person there is, right? Like, okay. All right. Well, you say
that's
so.
Why I call you for help, honey. That's why I talk to you. And on that note, I'm so it could be very overwhelming with all the stuff. So I just wanted to bring up a really good topic for once, just to touch base with the fact that marijuana is becoming legal. It is legal here in New York. Mm-hmm. Let's give a shout out to New York, okay?
Whoa.
I feel like they did when Prohibition was
right.
You know what I mean? Yep. I really do.
Yep.
I can't believe I don't have to sneak around anymore. And my son can finally come in, and as he always has, he breathes and he says, chicken cutlets and pot. Smells like home. Okay? And he's not a smoker or a drinker, but that's just the way it's always been. So I'm not going to keep you any longer. I'm so glad that we're back able to keep in touch with each other.
Yes.
I'm glad that you're back on Twitter.
Thank you.
And I adore you, and congratulations, and love to the critics and Mel. And that's what I had to say for tonight.
Awesome, Henny. Thanks for calling in. Love hearing from you.
Always my pleasure. Always my pleasure. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Awesome. Bye. Love, Henny. All right, I see you in the queue here. I will get to you in just a moment. But there was a couple questions coming up in the comments here. Yes, do they swear on a copy of Dianetics? Actually, we used to joke that we would swear on a stack of Dianetics books. I swear, this is on a stack of Dianetics books. This is absolutely true. That was, I actually picked that up from somebody else when I was in the Sea Org, just a little silly thing to say. Oh God, hey hon, I wish UK had, legalized marijuana as well. It'll get there. It certainly will. But as far as addressing the question, Gurroar, that you asked, in seriousness, yes, absolutely, of course. Scientologists would be willing to, I will say some Scientologists. I cannot sit here and say every single Scientologist, right? But I will clearly state that that Sea Org members there is a higher probability that you could induce perjury in a Sea Org member in defense of the Church of Scientology than the average level of perjury, right? I'll put it that way, right? In other words, I'll say the chances are definitely higher that could happen, especially as the threat becomes more central to David Miscavige or to anything he has ever touched or been around or had anything to do with. And then the threat going to the general Church of Scientology, right? If it was, if it became a thing of where they had to throw somebody on the bus or something, I think they'd probably do that rather than make a bunch of people perjure themselves. But when it comes to defending Miscavige, it's no holds barred, right? It's absolutely, they will do anything and everything to defend him, and any number of people at the upper levels of Scientology will definitely still throw themselves on their swords to defend David Miscavige and keep him safe from prison time or indictments or criminal charges or anything like that. So I definitely would put that. I feel confident saying that. All right. And let's just take a quick look here, see if we got... Nope, good. All right, so let us pick up this call in the queue about Scientology music. Hello, you are on.
Hi, this is Anthony.
Hey, Anthony.
Been a call a few times.
Yeah.
Always enjoyed talking to you. And I think the person got my name confused with the topic I was going to talk about, or the whatever system you have. So, because it asks you what's your name and what do you want to talk about. So, so I was on a recent sort of binge or period of just going down the Scientology internet rabbit hole as I'm off to do, and I found this one video on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called "Scientology's Music is Crazier Than Scientology Itself," or something along those lines. And it's this guy who he just goes through from the beginning of Scientology up till the present, all the different sorts of music albums they've produced and stuff. And I know that you actually reveal in one of your videos, you revealed to the world this I don't look like Vanilla Ice, leading you know the one I'm talking about.
Oh
right?
yeah, the cringy Scientology music videos. Yes, they are really
exactly.
They are championship quality, aren't they? They are really something.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing about them is that in a lot of them, there's sort of like this, it's all usually terrible. The music itself, it's terrible music, badly written.
Yeah.
But there's sort of this, this earnestness and this almost innocence in the way they sing it, in and their enthusiasm.
Yes.
That there's a charming quality to that, and that's what makes it all the more sad. There's sort of every time I listen to like one of these songs, I sort of start to get this little sense of like hell yeah, let's do this. Because I experienced some of that growing up in church and growing up going to these youth camps, and they leading all the teens and songs and stuff, very similar types of music. So listening to that stuff really, I can associate that with some of my own personal experience. And the big one for me, it seems almost like Scientology's theme song, is "We Stand Tall." I think that came out in the early '90s.
Yep. And
the music video was of course parodied by Saturday Night Live.
Yes, we just watched that the other day here. It is still just pitch perfect parody. It nailed it so good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I wanted to ask you about at the time when you were in, and that came out and that was released. Were you like on board with it? Like, yeah, this is awesome. Or were you thinking like, yeah, I support Scientology, but the song sucks? Or you know what? Even I'll be honest, the song itself is okay. It's in terms of melody, it's not horrible. I think it's a catchy song for sure. I know Miscavige didn't write it; he had it written.
That's right. I think David Pomerantz wrote it.
Okay, you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense. It sounds exactly like a song he would write. So I can totally believe that. I wanted to ask you about where you stood on that at the time it came out.
Absolutely. I'm happy to talk about this because it's kind of fun. I was absolutely on board with it. I was 100% in the headspace of thinking this was awesome stuff. The We Stand Tall video was awesome, right? It was so, and it was the music, right? It was the bass, it was the beat, it was the the spirit of it, and it was watching people who we thought of as authority figures in this chorus line, right? In this video, and then of course
most of whom have left. Most of whom have left.
Well, exactly. Almost all of those people in that shot are gone now. And then there's David Miscavige in the middle with his big, loud shirt.
Whatever that was. Yeah,
standing out from everybody else, right? And this is early 90s, so it was, those colors and that style. And everybody else was in more muted tones or, sweaters and things like the cardigans. It all was a little bit, make him the prime of the shot, right? But we were into it. And I was absolutely, and that came out when I was still a Class 5 staff member, when I was still in Santa Barbara. So I wasn't even Sea Org yet, right? But the music, and there were a number of efforts made in the 90s. There was a 1980s album called The Road to Freedom, and that was all we had for years. And that was... It was not really...
You get to hear Hubbard sing on that one.
Yes, Hubbard sings.
Come on, you get to hear Hubbard sing.
Yes, that's right. Thanks for the memory. Yeah, that was... anyway, that Hubbard singing was...
in quotes.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So that album was all we had. And the problem for me with Scientology music wasn't that I didn't particularly like the songs. They were okay. And they had messages that made sense to Scientologists. It was that they played it over and over and over again because it was the only damn song album they had. And so they would play it at reception until you were mind numb.
What about the Edgar Winter Mission? Sorry, but what about the Edgar Winter Mission Earth album? Was that played a lot too?
No, that hardly ever got played, at least where I was. Yeah, it was around, but we didn't really listen to it. And it was probably because I think most of the other staff in Santa Barbara just weren't really into jazz. I mean, we weren't listening to Chick Corea or anything either, It just wasn't our kind of music. And the Road to Freedom stuff was, but then We Stand Tall came out. It was like, a new Scientology song. What? And then we would there would become a thing where through the 90s, there were quite a few songs released at events. So the event would happen and then there would be a song. And you'd kind of look forward to it. It'd be like, oh yeah, let's get some more music. Let's get some more, something Scientology going. And always with the kind of hope deep down in the back of your head that maybe this could get mainstream. Maybe this could go viral, right? Pre-internet thinking, right? But maybe this could get picked up somehow and be amazing. And then Scientology would have another avenue of expansion and dissemination, right? So that was always kind of there too. And especially when, what was his name? DJ Jazzy. Oh God, no, not what was his name?
Dougie Fresh.
Dougie Fresh, yes, Dougie Fresh. God, totally missed that one. There was a lot of hope when he was around. When he was first coming online.
Well, he's still in, right?
I think he is still in. I think. Yeah. I haven't heard or seen anything from him in many, many years. But in the 90s, he was all over the place. We actually had a whole live concert at Big Blue that he came and played at, and other Scientology musicians came and played at, and that was a whole nother album release. I think that was the Spirit of Play or something. Yeah. So
were those guys in the yellow suits around when you were in?
Yes,
I forget their names.
Jive Aces. Okay. Yes, those are 4 Sea Org members who created a little quartet. They were already musicians. They all joined the Sea Org all at once over in the UK, and they were a dissemination and promotion thing for Scientology.
Yeah,
and I did not like their music.
Yeah,
I never ever liked the Jive Aces.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even remember what they sound like, but I'm sure you're right. There's one real quick. Also, I saw on that video I was mentioning earlier, there was one that was like a bunch of little kids, like in a school, and I don't even remember what that was, but it was like it was like you know what I'm talking about there? It was like there was. Yeah, what was that one about?
That was I'm trying to remember the theme of it. It was it was a human rights thing. It was going in parallel with or it was the beginning of the because it was an anti-bullying message, right? It was this kid getting bullied by these bigger guys at a basketball court or something. And then there were some Scientology celebs in it. This guy Taryn something put that together. That was the forerunner. That was the precursor to Scientology's entire human rights campaign. And I can't remember what that song was called, but it was a song that was, there were a couple, I actually did an interview with Jeff Levine, who gives the whole backstory on that entire thing. It's a long interview. It's kind of buried in there. But look up my interviews with Jeff Levine because he actually was involved in writing and executing that project.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was definitely probably the creepiest one because they've got it seems just so get these attractive happy looking kids to promote our to look all cutesy and happy to promote our Scientology nonsense. That's sort of the thing that really is the most off-putting about all the science. It's probably one of the most ones. It's the creepiest,
Absolutely.
And there's an extremely creepy moment, by the way, in We Stand Tall when they switch from saying he stands tall, when they switch from saying we stand tall to saying he stands tall, referring to Hubbard, of course. And that part of the video is where it gets the closest that I've ever seen to them like praying to him. Like it literally is like it looks like they're all singing prayer to Hubbard in that moment as if he's God. And I know they make a big deal about he's not God, he's just a man. But that one, it seems like there's this sort of like feeling in Scientology like if only we could worship him, if only we could just be outright in our worship of him. And that's when it all came out there. I don't know.
Well, let me address that because it's a good point you bring up, and and you're not the first one to make it. And so let me give you my take on it, at least, if you're interested.
Sure.
In contextualizing how I felt about Hubbard and how other people that I talked with about Hubbard, and I talked to a lot of people very openly and blatantly about L. Ron Hubbard when I was in Scientology, because I wanted to know and absorb all the information I could about the man from every single person I ever met who knew him. And I met a lot of people through the years who had somehow in one way or another gotten into his orbit. So I was a sponge for Hubbard, trivia or information or stories or anecdotes or whatever. And talking to all those people and then thinking about myself and my own experience with it, I really do need to push back on the word worship. But you are, it's a paper thin difference between that and what I'm about to describe, which is how I think we did think about him, which was hero worship. Like I thought of him the same way I might think about a superhero now. Like he wasn't a god. He was not supernatural. But Jesus, his work output, his what we thought of as his ethical standards, his ability was supernatural. But I never, ever thought of him as something other than a guy, you know, dragging a body around like the rest of us. But there was this level of admiration and awe. He to me and my mindset at that time, he was awe-inspiring. I was awed by him, you know. But it was but I always had the idea that I could get to a level where I could be that way too. And I think that's where I remove the worship from it, because to me, at least in my understanding of the word, you know, worship is of a being who is and always will be greater than you. That's my arbitrary idea. It doesn't have to be everybody's idea.
I totally am 100% on board with you, Chris, and I appreciate you're taking the time to really, really break this down for me so I can understand it.
Yeah.
It's just, the thing for me about it is that I think that's part of the thing that really fascinates me about Scientology is the fact that you and so many others were in such enthrall of this guy. You were so just sort of overwhelmed in your admiration for him and his work. And the thing about that that's so interesting to me is that whenever I'll put it this way. There have been different instances where I've tried to I'll listen to one of his lectures that's on YouTube, you know, and I'll be listening to it and I'll be like, okay, this time I'm going to try to understand what he's saying. I'm going to really try. And I fail every time. I just have no comprehension of any, like, when he talks, you know, you expect someone worthy of reverence, that you revere, right, to be very clear in their diction, very sort of like, you know, this is what I mean and everything, and to be very, very good at, you know, to be charismatic. And, you know, I guess he was charismatic in a way, but in terms of like sitting, I'm just like, what is he saying? I'm just like, I can't follow anything. I have no comprehension of what he's saying. And the fact that all of you could be such enthralled of that, when I still struggle to follow just the words, just what he's saying, is so fascinating to me, you know?
Yep, totally. And it's fascinating to me now.
Yeah.
Because it is a fascinating study. Awe, wonder, right, you know, why people choose or fall into that. I guess you could call it emotion or state of mind. You know, it is absolutely fascinating what'll do that to people. And for me, what it does to your thinking.
Yeah. Like I could never imagine like Moses, like coming down from the mountain and being like, so I was talking to this God guy and he wrote something down, you guys, and it's pretty cool that he wrote down these commandments. Yeah, there's this one commandment, and I can't imagine any of the Israelites following Moses for a second if he talked like that, you know. So that's the thing that.
I hear you. I do. It's context, man. You know, one person's beggar is another guy's leader, I guess. I don't know. You know, it's funny how we can see things.
Yeah. All right. Well, I had another thing I wanted to talk about, but I don't want to stay on the line too long. I want to. No, I got somebody else coming in through the queue right now, but we got a little bit of time. Go, what you got? Okay, cool. It was a different sort of topic. It's broader than Scientology. It's about cults in general and stuff. And I wanted to ask you, in all your study of, oh, hey, what's up? 1 second. Sorry. I just got family who walked up to me. I'm gonna get to a private spot.
Cool.
1 second. Anyway, what I was saying is that it's about cults in general, and I thought to myself, is there such a thing as a benign cult? Like, obviously, all cults are bad by definition.
Yeah.
But my question was, is there a cult that is technically a cult by the typical definition, but they're not harming people all that much? Like, the people in there are outwardly happy, and for like a specific instance of abuse would be kind of hard to pinpoint, I guess. Or and for me, the example would be, for me personally, the example would be realism. I don't know if you know much about that. It's another UFO cult. I mean, it's weird and it's wacky, but I haven't seen much in realism that I would consider harmful. So if you could comment on that.
Totally. Yeah, I totally will. First off, my modeling of these words is a little different in that I use the term destructive cult to talk about that group of cults that are destructive, right? We separate those guys out and we call them destructive cults, thereby kind of acknowledging that there's a whole bunch of other groups that we'll call cults per the dictionary definition, but they're not destructive. They're not abusive, deceitful, deceptive, isolating, manipulative, etc., right? And in that sense, when you get down to just the basic definition of the word cult, you're really almost opening yourself up to talking about any group anywhere. Because a cult is defined in different terms, but usually comes around to a group of people united around a common purpose, right? Which is also kind of a decent definition of the word group. For me, I bring the word cult in when I start thinking about where it comes from, which is culture. And how you get a very, a tight-knit group. They get their own rules. They get their own dress sometimes. Sports clubs, right? Martial arts dojos, things like that. Those could be cults, but are they destructive? Not unless the leader goes off the rails. So you have lots of cults around, the way I think about them and look at them, as I just described. And they are completely beneficial, useful, right? You could call the Boy Scouts a cult that way. And of course, there's, destructive behavior that exists in these groups. Of course, here we go with the Boy Scouts, right? But is it dogmatic in the Boy Scouts, for example, to, engage in child molestation? No, it's not. It's not a practice of that group according to its rules to do that. So when somebody's doing that, they're kind of going off the reservation and going a little outside of the cult's actual guidelines, right? And in that sense, I kind of can't call the whole thing a destructive cult because that's not what it's really all about,
Right. So is benign cult kind of an oxymoron to you? Because when you're using the word, you're always referring it in the destructive sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's totally fine to clarify benign cult as different from, say, destructive cult. That perfectly fits, right? I just happen to use the word cult regularly as pretty much benign cult, Try to differentiate those. And, another controversial one, just since we're on the topic, would be the military, which I've explained before is very culty. Very coercive even in some ways. But when you look at the context of the situation, you have to go, well, yeah, but is this destructive? Is this abusive? Is this something that people don't know what they're getting into when they join it? Not really, So I can't really say the military is a destructive cult, but it checks every box of the BITE model. So you kind of go, well, there's...
And the Sea Org was based on the military, right?
Yes,
or the
it
Navy,
was.
Anyway.
Yep. Paramilitary, that's right. Because those mechanisms of discipline and those mechanisms of the rules and the structure and the hierarchy put a lot of order in place and allow a small number of people to get a lot more done than they normally would. And so that structure lends itself to also, unfortunately, being one step away from being extremely abusive if you take it too far.
Yeah, exactly. I just asked because, there's certain groups that get lumped in with a lot of the well-known cults, like realism and some others. And you know, while they're all weird, while realism is very out there, like I was saying, I haven't seen any reports or any research of any of them of Rael himself being abusive or engaging in any. I mean, you know, I'd be more than happy to be proven wrong. I'm sure someone will say, "Well, wait, you didn't see this article or something." But there's other groups like that most people would call cults. But you know, I think it's very important in this line of work to differentiate between the dogs that have teeth and the toothless dogs.
Exactly. Exactly. That's right. And I think maybe one thing that's influencing the way you're looking at this too, and it's a common thing. I'm not, this isn't any negative, is another definition of cult that gets used a lot is a group with oddball, non-mainstream, bizarre beliefs. Right. A lot of people will just look at a group based on its dogma or its belief set and go, oh, that's a cult. You know, from my perspective, not so much, but I get that. And certainly when you're talking about a group like the Raelians, I think you're absolutely right. I've never heard of any kind of weird, destructive stuff going on there. Just oddball, weird beliefs, you know?
Right. And it seems like in the case of Heaven's Gate, they were kind of like that right up until the end.
Their dogma straight up was suicidal from the get-go, right? Or at least as it developed near the end there. So, so I can't say from the very beginning because I don't have their entire history mapped out in my head, but I know certainly at the end they became as destructive as you can get.
By the way, one last thing before I sign off, unless you get to other callers, I would be super interested if it could ever happen. I don't know if you know of any former Heaven's Gate members who would be interested in coming on your show, but that would be a discussion I'd love to hear about. Like someone who was there, a former Heaven's Gate, member. That would be a really fascinating conversation.
Sure, absolutely. I'll check it out.
All right. Well, thanks for all you do, Chris, and have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right. And Nick, I see you in the queue. So let's go ahead and actually pick you up, and then I will do that little bit that I was promising Henny. And let me just check the comments here real fast. I am well aware, by the way, guys, that my military thing is extremely controversial, and not everybody shares my views on that. But I'm looking at it strictly from the point of view of the abusive factors and the context of, is this, anyway, you guys know what I'm looking at it from. All right, so let's go ahead and pick up this call. Hello, is this Nick?
Hey.
Hi, welcome to the show.
Masters and that stuff. The what?
I just welcomed you to the show.
Can you hear me? Yes, awesome. So I gotta remember the video's not instant with the phone. Sorry about that. So anyway, the question that I had, because I know you've got like maybe 6 minutes before the show ends.
Oh yeah, no,
so,
I'm not going to stop the show right on time if we're in the middle, but I do need you to speak up a little bit. I can barely hear you.
Okay, is this better?
That's a little better, yeah.
Okay. So I was listening to a podcast in which Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson were both agreeing that humans don't have free will, but at the same time, there's predestination. Now, it's kind of disturbing to me that both of these people from very different belief systems agree on these two concepts, because to me it's like, well, if you have predestination, that means there's somebody writing the script. There's somebody programming the friggin' computer game, whatever, right?
I mean, kind of. It sort of implies that, unless you're talking about some kind of quantum thing or something, I guess.
It's frustrating me a little bit, because it's like, the more and more I listen to either of these two, and other people within various ideologies, whether it's atheism or Christianity or New Age ideology or even politics. There seems to be this like weird mythology of, oh yeah, there's no such thing as free will. It's all predestined. It's all this like it's a weird mixture of like, yeah, it's almost theosophy, which is strange because I'm like, okay, I can see how they're getting from like something Blavatsky wrote back in the fucking 1800s, pardon my language, to, you know, some politician or some, you know, pundit spewing nonsense today. And I'm just kind of wondering, as somebody who's not that influential, how does someone, you know, kind of guard against that, not just, you know, within ourselves, but also the community? Because honestly, I look at both Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson, and I'm like, both these guys are, you know, they've gone off the deep end to a great degree in different ways, but they've still both, in my opinion, have gone off the deep end. And it's like, I'm a little concerned with all the people that are listening to them, following them, that do not have the critical thinking, because as Ayn Rand once famously said, the vast majority of people, when they're faced with somebody claiming to be an intellectual, they're not going to challenge said intellectual. So that's really kind of my concern. Sure.
Well, here's the thing. Ideas are bulletproof, right? Ideas spread. Ideas get around. As soon as we talk, as soon as we, you know, get around, as soon as we're writing, whatever, we're getting ideas spread around. Ideas are a dime a dozen. And ideas also are evolutionary, right? Ideas change, they morph. And every one of us is just as capable as every other one of us of talking, of speaking, of writing, of communicating, at least, you know, obviously, unless you're impaired in some fashion. So point is that we all have a voice, and all of our voices really at the end of the day kind of have the same capability of creating change in the world, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And the reason I lead with this is because you're asking, well, what can we do? Well, you can do exactly what you're doing right now. You can openly talk in a public forum about your concerns about these ideas that you think are not right, or are silly, stupid, ill-conceived, off the rails, whatever, and you can make a counter argument to it. In other words, the way to fight a bad idea is with a better idea.
Well, and to that, though, I mean, I guess one of my concerns is, I mean, for example, you know, say I write a book challenging atheism or pointing out things that I don't like about atheism or Christianity or, you know, the Republicans or whatever. It's like, I'm literally a nobody. I'm living in the middle of friggin', you know, godforsaken Nebraska. I'm just, you know, I'm not wealthy. I'm not, you know, famous. I'm not, you know, I'm nobody people are really going to follow. So it's like, even if I put my ideas out there, it might be a while before they even catch on. But at the same time, it's like, I just keep seeing, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I know Sam Harris used to be one of the four horsemen, but I mean, I almost got to think that, you know, due to some of the things Harris is saying and how he's acting lately, as far as his level of irrationality, I almost have to wonder, you know, I have to think that it's Dawkins, right? Dawkins is the one that's passed away. I'd have to
did Dawkins die?
Got to be rolling.
Last I knew, he was still alive.
Dawkins, I'm not sure. Which one is it that passed away?
Christopher Hitchens passed.
Okay. Well, I would think that Hitchens has got to be rolling in his grave. Sitting in his grave from all the things that,
well, I think Hitchens is rolling in his grave over about 30 different things by now, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I've read some of I think it's Daniel Dennett's stuff. He's friggin' brilliant, but he pulled himself way out of the public spotlight. But Harris just keeps doing more and more damage, and it's like, what the blank?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's I think you're going to find, here's the thing though, okay? And let me put this out there for you, because I definitely get that you're concerned, and it's not misplaced. I understand you're concerned about these ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. How do I put this? We live in a world now of illusion in many ways, because of the inability of ourselves to perceive electric waves, to perceive, in other words, just how big is social media? Just how much of an impact is it making? Mm-hmm. Just how big is a YouTube channel? Just how much impact is it making? You know, Sam Harris is not a nothing burger. He's not nobody. But when we enmesh ourselves in a world of Sam Harris, right, versus, you know, Jordan Peterson discussions, you're putting yourself into a world that not a lot of people are actually in.
It's very true.
I mean, if you really want to go big picture, right? Sam Harris is you know, he's not that big of a deal. And he's a really big deal to a small number of people. And I used to be one of those people. I read his book on free will. It made some interesting and convincing arguments. And then I had discussions with some other people, and I went, yeah, maybe that's not all there is to it. And that's what you do is you consider the ideas, because that's what he's doing, is he putting them out there for you to consider. And you go, well, this doesn't make any sense. And you formulate, well, why doesn't it make sense? And the best you, me, any of us can really do at the end of the day is keep perspective. That is really hard for us to do.
I know myself, and I see how vulnerable I am to ideological possession sometimes, because I'm just like, I mean, if I focus on a subject, I can be like, oh, this is like the key to everything, and it's not.
Exactly.
So it's like,
exactly.
I know how easy it is for me to become ideologically possessed, and then I look around at all these different groups, and I'm just like, I mean, it's almost like demonic possession as defined by the fucking church. I mean, it's like, holy crap! It's like, it's like people don't have a clue how to think critically, and we really need to get people to learn how to think critically, whether or not they agree with me or not.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Exactly, we do, and again, it's really accomplished. The best you and me as individuals can do. At the end of the day, the best we can do is speak our mind in as public a forum as we can, as often as we can, and choose our battles. You know, because we can't fight all of them. And believe me, you will go crazy trying. I have tried. I tried to fight all the battles. You know, it's no good.
Well, yeah,
it's no good. You got to pick your battles.
And I know for me, I mean, it's a constant. I mean, one of the reasons that I do like listening to you and a few other atheists that I agree with and that, you know, act like good human beings is because, I mean, because of what happened, you know, with the atheist culture back in 2005, early YouTube. I mean, they did so much damage to atheism. I mean, it sucks, and it's like atheists now today, you know, you got to be even more focused on critical thinking and using logic, reason, and evidence, because we could make this world a paradise, you know, regardless of whether or not, you know, we're atheists. But the thing of it is like, we got to be willing to do the heavy lifting, and we got to be willing to, you know, be the grown-ups in the room and not, you know, sink down to the levels of, you know, somebody like Hubbard in the sketch.
Yeah, that's right.
You know? That's
exactly right. And at the end of the day, that's all we can do, you know, do the best we can. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for calling in with this.
Great. You have a great night. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. All right. So those are the calls for this evening. And I want to thank Robert for that super chat. Thank you very much. I want to encourage everybody to consider supporting the show, supporting the channel here. These things are all fan-funded, and it would be appreciated. Thank you, Craig, for that super chat. Very, very appreciated. Okay. So, yes, I hear all of you guys in the comments there. Thank you, Gurur, for that. Yeah, that Midnight Mormon show was fun. All right, I promised I would go over this little thing. I just wanted to throw something out there. This is a real simple idea, actually. So let me just share it with you guys, and then we will do our critical thinking cards and wrap up for this week. Yes, it is Lauren. Don't worry, I have not forgotten. Okay, but first, these are the emotional needs. Remember those podcasts I did a couple months ago with Rachel Bernstein about our emotional needs? I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I don't know that I'm nailing any universal truths here, but I wonder. And one of them is that we all have these things. These are not the sense of security, the need for autonomy or a feeling of control, the need for attention, to receive attention from people, emotional connection, community, privacy, a sense of self or ego, or that we have value. This is an emotional need. We all have it. It's important that we have some sense of ourself and that we feel like we matter. And that's just one of 9 of these, right? There's achievement, and there is, of course, in the end, a sense of meaning, that our life has purpose and direction, and it amounts to something. And it's got me wondering, I was sort of thinking, we don't really talk about or graph these things very well, or really think about them in terms of spectrums. But I was wondering, maybe one of the things that throws us off in terms of our ability to perceive the world and get along in the world, think about the world, despite different religions, ideologies, moralities, every single person you can say, no matter what, is made up of these: Christians, Islam, Jew, Scientologist, black, white, red, Republicans, Democrats, independents. All of us are joined by these. And I wonder if, looking at these and thinking about these a little bit more closely, right? That we have emotional needs. We acknowledge that these are actually a thing, that they're not some negative, that they're not some bias, that they are not something we're ever going to get rid of, that they're not something to be suppressed, I think is what I mean by this, right? Any more than our sex drive should be, or our appetite to eat. I mean, these are things we have to do. And I think that the degree that these things are impaired or hampered or suppressed in our lives is the degree that we go a little bit nuts, that our morality starts coming into question, that we adopt bizarre ideologies, that we adopt bizarre political positions, right? Is because our emotional needs are getting all whacked out. And this, of course, ties in completely with our physical needs, because these things go hand in hand. When you are hungry, tired, hurt, whatever, your emotions are all over the place, right? And your sense of your needs are kind of all over the place. So I think this has a lot more to do, I guess is what I'm saying, with who we are, what we are, and how we act and think and approach the world than we may have been giving attention to this, and I think it's something I want to put more attention on as I move forward here, because this, of course, has everything to do with why people join cults, get involved in them, stay in them, and eventually escape from them, is these emotional needs are at the heart of it, heart and soul of it. So I think this is a topic worth talking about more, maybe looking at more from different angles. I don't want to just keep harping on emotional needs, but somehow I want to get more done around this, because I think that might be more to us understanding ourselves better. And that's always what I'm trying to do, is understand myself and understand other people better, so that we can get along better, understand each other better. So yes, Henny, thank you. I would encourage anybody who did not watch those shows with me and Rachel to check those out. I think it was a 3-part series of Sensibly Speaking podcasts that we did. And we went over these things. We broke them all down one by one. So we kind of went into detail on each one. And that's a great place to start, to look into who are you? What drives you? These things. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Your ideas are going to change over time. It's guaranteed. It's guaranteed, right? The fact that you have these needs isn't. How you go about meeting those needs is everything. So I don't know, maybe there's something there, maybe there isn't. It's just a germ of an idea right now, but I wanted to share it with you guys. So that all being said, let's go ahead and check our cards for this week. Okay. So this is the deck of logical fallacies and cognitive biases, and your fallacy is burden of proof. saying that the burden of proof lies not with the person making the claim, but with someone else to disprove. Okay, here's an example, right? Bertrand declares that a teapot is, at this very moment, in orbit around the sun between the Earth and Mars, and that because no one can prove him wrong, his claim is therefore a valid one. Yeah, it doesn't work, right? If you make a claim, you got to prove it. You got to provide some evidence, back it up, show other people why that is true, or somehow make a convincing argument, and that's your burden of proof. It's not anybody else's to prove your argument or your claim. Fascinating stuff. Yes, Lauren, very, very utilized in politics, indeed. All right. So, guys, thank you very much for all of your wonderful comments along here. You guys have a great weekend. You are going to see, by the way, part 3 and the final part of my interview with Catherine Olson. That comes up tomorrow. It's already done deal. It's already uploaded, so that's gonna post in a few hours. And Sunday there will be a regular Q&A show. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your viewership. And bye-bye.